So today we're just going to go through the quick agenda on what we're going to talk about. We're going to go through and discuss what is BIM, why you should be using it, why it's valuable to you, and then we'll get into our Primus case study. Then we'll turn it over to Mark for his RDA case study, and then Mark will close out for us with how you could get started, a couple of best practices, and maybe some helpful links and resources for all of you to utilize. So building information modeling is an intelligent model-based process that provides value across the lifecycle of any project. Although BIM has become synonymous with building design, the fact is that the definition, and more importantly, the value of BIM is the same in every industry. The BIM process involves creating and using an intelligent and generally 3D model to inform and communicate project decisions. A process shift to building information modeling can fundamentally improve the way we plan, design, build, and manage our buildings, infrastructure, utility, or natural resource projects. Autodesk delivers advanced design and simulation technology and a comprehensive portfolio BIM solution to support BIM through desktop, cloud, and mobile platforms so that context and consistency are more effectively maintained throughout the lifecycle. The right people are able to practically access the information anywhere and anytime. Information is able to be used or presented in such a way that helps to achieve project objectives. Autodesk BIM solutions help you to transform your business process and turn information into insight. Project stakeholders are empowered to make better decisions, respond more quickly to the shifting project, business, and industry requirements with more accurate, accessible, and actionable information. Simply put, BIM is a way to design, construct, and operate buildings that involves creating and using intelligent 3D models. Compared to traditional 2D drawings, these models give all stakeholders better understanding of the project, which leads to better, more predictable building outcomes. How is BIM different from CAD? BIM is more than simply just a 3D CAD. It's more than a 3D model of a building. BIM solutions use database technology to embed information and relationships into a model, which actually creates more of an intelligent model. When successfully implemented, BIM workflows can support more efficient workflows, more accurate communication that help address project complexities. It also helps firms to compete more aggressively, using simulations to optimize designs and promote greater predictability. We can also use cloud and mobile platforms to help stakeholders get the information that they need, when and where they need it, so that they can respond more quickly to impact project outcomes. BIM also puts a vast amount of information in context to better inform decision making. Whether you start with the existing conditions or conceptual design, an information-rich model is key to realizing the benefits of BIM. With this data-rich model, you can simulate and visualize key physical functional characteristics. You can also coordinate project information and collaborate with stakeholders. You can build a smarter, more agile process that helps to retain knowledge and support quality targets. With today's technology, it's possible to gather, synthesize, and share immense amounts of data on any given project or portfolio of assets. However, the information itself will be limited. It is what you can do with the information, or the I in BIM, that adds value. And with this is the set that Autodesk solutions for BIM are a part of the traditional technologies. As you can see here, we have a couple of slides to show who benefits from the introduction to BIM. The case studies have actually only been done from 2009 to 2012 in this case. But you can see here that architects greatly benefit from the introduction to BIM with, reduced documentation errors, reduced cycle of lifetime for specific workflows. The engineers are benefiting. They can offer new services. We can do analytical models. You can do, stress tests basically through structural. And then the owners of the BIM models, they can benefit basically by the reduction of errors. They don't have to do as much rework. There's definitely fewer ROIs. Construction costs actually probably stay about the same because the workflow does differ a little bit there as well. Adoption of BIM in North America obviously has progressed very rapidly. You can see here that from 2007 to 2012, we have gone up exponentially. Again, it will have gone up from there as well, and we expect that it to be almost fully integrated within the next few years. At the close of the 20th century, the process for construction had not changed dramatically in 50 years. Architects and engineers design the building. They produce the drawings that the contractors use for construction. However, the rapid adoption of building information modeling in the last decade suggests that the construction industry is quickly moving away from those traditional building processes and embracing new methods and technologies for building delivery. Technology, which includes but is not limited to the BIM software, helped contractors ride out the economic turmoil, win new work, and even profit in a climate with lower bidding volumes and tighter margins. In fact, model-based workflows and tools are becoming the norm. In the 2013 McGraw-Hill Construction Report, it illustrates that over the next 2 years, so now, contractors expect the percentage of their work involving BIM to increase by 50% on average, and the percentage of contractors and high level of BIM implementations will dramatically increase. There have been a number of countries, not only the US, which have began mandating the use of BIM. Autodesk is among many other companies which are a part of UK's effort to define BIM's specifications for public projects. There are many other infrastructure owners that are including or planning to mandate BIM deliverables as well. For example, several US transportation departments are calling for building according to BIM specifications. In fact, the MAP 21 policy of the US incentivizes states for using 3D models and visualizations and using BIM effectively. We recently gave BIM tours to the government in Japan, where the RMIT group is leveraging Autodesk technology as well. Countries like Brazil and Mexico, Japan, and Finland are also pursuing BIM standards similar to that of the UK. In fact, Finland is 2 years ahead of the UK. By the end of this year, all of its public projects will have BIM mandated. In the Middle East, Dubai and Saudi Arabia have BIM as a part of their infrastructure specifications as well. Big economies are betting on BIM for public projects. The rest will certainly follow. However, there is still a long way to go. A main BIM ROI factor is the stakeholder dimension. Interviewing respondents revealed that they assess the return of BIM differently depending on their role in the project. Whether one employs BIM as a tool for design, construction, or operations affects their perspective. This is consistent with previous research, which identified different stakeholder views about the value. For example, owners tend to recognize multi-party communication and improved project processes and outcomes as their top benefits, while architects and engineers prioritize productivity and communication. Contractors actually list their productivity and lower project costs as their top BIM benefits. On the project level, when a company makes the decision to move to BIM, the drivers for adoption establish important objectives that impact the way returns are pursued and achieved. In some cases, customers interviewed about BIM ROI stated that the adoption was driven by client requirements on a project, which Mark will actually speak to in his case study. In this case, a firm is likely to seek returns resulting from the success and profitability of that completed BIM-enabled project. As firms expand their application of BIM to multi-projects or widen the use of BIM as a business strategy, the notion of ROI must be expanded to incorporate the benefits at a firm level, such as opportunities for work with new clients. Throughout the BIM ROI interviews, respondents mentioned corporate improvements in workflows and team capabilities. As one builder states, net fee revenues can be higher with BIM. We can now do the kinds of work with 600 people that we used to do with 650. Other benefits include staffing competency, and retention. Opportunities for business model expansion or new services such as quality assurance or model development are also benefits at the firm level. Data-rich models provide opportunities for companies to offer ongoing services to clients as data more smoothly integrated into the facility operation and maintenance. Returns at a firm level can be challenging to attribute solely to BIM. If companies continue to track business health in terms of traditional metrics such as profitability, risk factors, and amount of claims or litigations projects won or lost, or repeat business with key clients, the actual impact of BIM on these measures can be very difficult to separate from other factors. With that being said, we'll jump into our case studies. The first case study will be about Primus. As Megan said, they are a 70 plus person firm with offices in California as well as in Georgia. They are actually headquartered in Georgia. We were introduced to Primus in November of 2013, and since the beginning the BIM integration with Microdesk, they have started 19 new projects within Revit and with full company support. This is actually all of their new projects since 2013. They have fully integrated and decided to go ahead completely with Revit and kind of knock out the use of CAD there as well. Primus is a multi-discipline design firm that focuses primarily on the design build of cold storage facilities. So not only are they architectural and structural, they also have a build team in-house as well. They do the actual construction management on site, travel to the locations and essentially live there for months at a time. They are a house that used CAD for 30 or so years on average. They had the different suites available to them, but they were still very comfortable in their CAD ways. The current design team out of Woodstock, Georgia has 5 architects and 4 structural engineers on staff. Our objectives going in were to create accurate Revit models for coordination with the building team. Not only was this something that we were looking to provide them the service for, but we also wanted to instruct and help them to be able to create these kinds of models going forward. We went in to assess their current modeling process. When we arrived there, they had a single person on staff that was Revit proficient, self-taught Revit proficient, and the modeling process was a little different in ways that we would normally instruct that as well. So we sat down, discussed the way that we feel that it should take a turn, and we made the effort to go ahead and start moving in that direction. We then brought in structural and architectural personnel to train the entire staff, and then we assisted with their first pilot project as well, and then helped out just minor on a variety of other projects that they went ahead and started thereafter. Once we got all the training ahead of us, or behind us rather, and the projects had started, we went ahead and created their BIM Standard documentation, which was a collaborative architectural and structural BIM documentation. It's quite long and extensive, gave them kind of a good overview of the industry, how it works, and the ways they should be working. And then we created their multi-discipline Revit templates, each discipline having their own. Their pilot project was not actually started in their template, and we did discover difficulties along the way, and then went ahead and integrated the newer template into their existing pilot project. A few challenges that we ran into, as you would with any firm, is we ran into a lot of communication issues. Being that they are a relatively smaller design side of the firm, they were managing their own projects. They all had their own separate offices and really just kind of stuck to their own, did their own thing. And that's not really an effective use of the modeling environment. So we did open up communication. They now hold monthly lunch and learns in-house on their own to discuss challenges that they have come across, new features that they've discovered. They're getting ready to roll out 2015, and they are going to go ahead and do a big lunch and learn on that actually right now. And so they did open up communication quite a bit. We also were not necessarily forced, but we were asked to challenge their current design process. With the type of work that they do, the cold storage facilities, it's very similar, not always the same, but very similar. And their design process actually revolved around the detailing aspect much more than the design aspect. So going in using building information modeling, it definitely turned the tables. The design, actually, the building, the model itself became more important, and the detailing and the documentation kind of fell in behind. This is not something that they were used to, and this did take a little bit of communication, not only with the design team, but with the build team as well. They were constantly asking for updates on the detailing, which we did not have because we were modeling as opposed to doing all of our CAD details first and foremost. We actually also did a lot of on-demand content creation, being that they work with a lot of different clients. They had a lot of client-specific manufacturers that were requested, and they needed a lot of content built on demand. A lot of dock doors and bollards and things along those lines. So we did build those to manufacturer specifications. And then we did, like I said, go through and do their template. We had an existing template to start with. It was very broad and very generic. And we went ahead and just let go of that template and started anew and went ahead and customized it explicitly to their needs with all of the types of items that they would need and the organization structure that they were looking for. So for the projects that they piloted, their main goal and reason was their first pilot project, which is an extremely large project for the grocery chain Kroger in just outside of Atlanta. And this was the largest project on record for Primus. And so our main focus there was to support this project. So not only was predominantly the entire staff working on it at one point, but Microdesk was there 5 days a week, supporting and also working alongside them for production on this project. It actually had several separate CD submissions that it went through. Each building had its own set of documentation. And then they had to do a cumulative site plan to be able to show all of the buildings. So you can kind of see here, we went through several different CDs on this one as well. While they started this one, this pilot project, they started it the week of the training. So they actually just went back to their office in the afternoons and began this project. They went ahead and started a secondary project as well. So they actually did 3 pilots at the same time. And because they are a smaller design team, they had solo projects. So each person did a single user project. So this was started and completed as a single user and project manager that did the entire project. We assisted, where time crunch became an issue, and then content creation as well. But it was a single user. It does combine all of the disciplines, their in-house architectural and structure, as well as the outside consultants that they generally tend to use as well. So it was done as a complete BIM model. I do believe this was an on-time submission as well, and it is underway at this point. Their third pilot project, and this is the last one I'll discuss, is a smaller project that they went ahead and, again, started while we were kind of in the training phase. But it was good to start because another single user started this one as well. So we had 2 separate single users going through and doing their pilots as well. Again, same idea. We helped where we needed to, and then the content creation. This one actually had a little bit of a different challenge than the others. It does have rail access, which is different than a few of their projects. And then we had multiple phases and design option challenges in this one as well. So they kind of got a good broad instruction with that one. This one was mostly an in-house multidiscipline architectural and structural model as well. So they were able to complete 3 pilot projects within just a short amount of time. We were in-house for about a year, helping them get to this place with their projects, and they have blossomed and taken it on their own at this point. And so we will now hear about Mark's as well. So take it away, Mark.
Well, thank you, Angela. So this is the case study for Raymond Design Associates and the Thurgood Marshall Middle School project. Just to give you a little bit of the project specifics, this was a 120,000 square foot middle school for the city of Lynn, Massachusetts. It had a total construction budget of approximately $90 million. And similar to Primus, our engagement with Raymond Design was for about a year, where we worked closely on site with them and helped guide them along in their pilot project. Now, just to give you a little background about the firm, this firm employed just 4 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. Their design expertise lied mainly in the realm of residential architecture, though they did take on the occasional commercial project now and then. They had also worked on 2 school projects in the last 10 years. And with this project, it was a little bit different, where the requirements for this project were no longer just a CAD requirement, but it also had a BIM mandate where they had to give over to the City of Lynn a BIM model at the end. Their in-house process was still hand drafting for the most part, because primarily all of their work was being done in the residential architecture. That was still their fastest way within their skill set to produce a set of drawings. And occasionally with some of those commercial projects, they would translate that into a 2D AutoCAD. One of the other things that we found when we got there and we assessed this firm is that all of the computers that they had were old, both the hardware and the software. Things hadn't been updated probably for 10 years or so. But again, because they were primarily hand drafting, their computer was basically a glorified email machine and sending documents or typing up documents. So we needed to identify some of the challenges that we were going to have before we got this pilot project underway. And the first was that they needed to procure new hardware. They needed to get something in their office that was capable of running the latest BIM technologies so that they were effective and efficient when they were producing this model. And of course, so the second part after getting the hardware was that they needed to get the software. Get the software in-house that they could then use to generate these BIM deliverables. We needed to take all of their office standards and we needed to convert those into Revit capable files. So they, like I said, they did have some CAD standards and they did have some hand drafting standards, and we took all of those things, title blocks and artwork and all that, and we got it into CAD for them. So we had to get past that hurdle early on. The biggest part and the biggest challenge was getting the staff educated and getting them up to par with what they needed to do in order to produce the set in Revit. And so educating the staff was a big part of that. And we didn't do it in the most conventional method where we sat down and taught them a lesson and then said, okay, now go back to your desk and do it. So the way that we ran the educational portion of this project is that on a day-to-day basis, we would pick a topic that was the hot topic for that day. So say we were starting the project. That day we would go through and I'd say, okay, well, here is how you would go about setting up a new project. And we'd have the staff around and they'd watch and they'd learn. And we'd start every morning at the beginning that way. And over time, those classes became less and less, and it became more of a mentoring process. But this is how we started each one of them, is just kind of getting them to learn the basics of what the software could do and how they could use it to leverage their design and how to become Revit capable or BIM capable. And so that leads into the next part, is just working alongside the team. Working as a BIM administrator, mentoring them, and then as the deadlines were coming up at the end, we became active design participants, similar to how they were doing it at Primus. Okay. So at the end, the conclusion, so they were able to get this project out in BIM. They used it for visualizations. We brought it into Navisworks and did some collaboration and coordination. The project is under construction now. I've talked with the client several times since the set was delivered to the contractors, and he said that he's very pleased with it. They've had very few RFIs coming in. That everything has been really buttoned down well. So all in all, the experience that they had has been a good one. It also has sparked their curiosity to learn other tools that are out there. They've dabbled in InfraWorks on top of these softwares. And they're looking at some of the projects that are coming up and how they can implement these new tools with those. And they're even looking at how they could possibly take some of the knowledge that they've learned for Revit and how they can apply that to their residential side of of the business. So all in all, it was a great experience, and I think they got a lot out of it, and I think that they're going to have a lot more benefits in the future. So, how do we get started? Well, the first thing that you need to do to successfully implement BIM is that you need to have vision, leadership, you need to make incremental changes, and you need to pick the right pilot project. So the vision. A well-articulated vision from executive leadership of what the BIM process will achieve for an organization and what the principal elements of the transformation are and what this evolution will look like at various stages. Executive leadership must be capable of positioning BIM within the strategic objectives of their entire organization. So basically what I mean is you need to have a goal, and you need to make sure that you have articulated and it's understood by everyone on the team. You want to make sure that there is a clear plan in place and that it is understood and laid out well. Leadership. You need to be able to designate leadership so that everybody knows their roles. So when there are questions or problems, you know who to turn to, who to go to help work these issues out. Incremental change. So what I mean by that, and this is very important, you need to understand that when implementing BIM, that it's not going to take place overnight. For people working on projects and they're nervous about jumping into BIM, think back to when the industry was switching over to drawing by hand to computers. You didn't do it overnight. You would still oftentimes hand draft over some of the prints to make them look right. You actually worked partway on the computer until you were fully integrated in CAD. BIM is the same thing. You want to have a good plan that lays things out, but doesn't bite off too much in the first shot. And if you can pick a good project, and if possible, try and get something that's not crazy. Make sure that it's something that's relatively simple, that you can sink your teeth into. Firms find that BIM projects they complete after the first one, they become faster and better, and they are able to complete higher and on their return. So just moving from the drawing board in 2D CAD to moving to BIM, there may be some initial drop-off in productivity until the system is mastered. So in terms of picking that project, what you want to do is, 1, set those goals and objectives. The easiest thing to do is look at, okay, what do we need to do? Then, looking at it from an architect's point of view, what you need to do is floor plans and schedules. Those are the 2 easiest things to do. Then say, okay, it would be awesome if we could have our elevations in BIM too. Or it would be great if we could do our sections. So, depending on where you are, take a look at every phase and look at every milestone and ask yourself, how are we doing? Are we on track with what we need to do? Or are we tracking towards what we would like to do? Or do we need to set expectations and change up what we're going to produce? BIM is a workflow. It's a process, and the tools in that process are going to help you along. But that does not mean that you don't have to talk to each other anymore. Oftentimes you'll find that you have to communicate even more when working in a BIM project, because objects and incidences that may not have been visible when working in 2D CAD often become visible when working in a BIM model. Now, as part of those processes, the image on the right might look a little confusing at first. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, what you're going to see is a diagrammatical breakdown of an entire project that takes place over a very complex site, and how the model, in this case, is then broken down by location of where the model is on the site. And everyone on the team understands that if they look at this, it is over here or it's over there, and the breakdown is then broken further down by what information you have for the requirements of the project, the internal requirements for the project, the procedures in terms of collaborating with other people. Now, all of this information would live in a document known as the BIM Execution Plan, or the BEP. This could be something that you created yourself or that you could get from someone else and then edit to suit your needs. This is something that is typically brought up at the very beginning of each BIM project to ensure that everybody on the project is on the same page, and most importantly, that everybody understands what their goals and requirements are. So that in 3 months into this project, nobody is saying, "You told us you were doing this in BIM, and we were expecting this." BIM can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. You want to make sure that what is expected is explicit. Now from there, we need to talk about the different people. And if you have problems, where do you go to? Part of this is looking at the different roles on a BIM project. Now some of these would actually change, and a lot depends on the size of the project or the size of the project team. But you need to lay these things out and know who's managing your models and who's going to be responsible for getting your consultants' models and verifying that things are being done correctly or laid out correctly and that everything is in the right locations. Again, these positions vary depending on the size of the firm and the size of the project, but you still want to make sure that everybody understands what their job is and what they are expected to do. Organization is a crucial part of working in BIM. Now, when you start looking at standards, this is one of the biggest gaps that people can't get over. And when I say gaps, I don't mean that it's hard. What I mean is that most companies have been in business for a very long time. And over that time, they have built up a very good set of standards. And some of them are actually being followed. So if you've been working in CAD for a while, you must have existing sheets, existing symbols, existing details, and you're worried that if you were to transition into Revit, that all of this is going to get thrown away. Or now you're going to have to spend the next 3 months just building that back up again. But in all honesty, you really don't. And we're going to take a look at this in a couple of minutes, but a lot of these standards have already been developed by others. You do not have to recreate them all for yourself. A lot of the places that have BIM mandates will also have BIM standards available. An example would be the New York Department of Buildings. And as part of their mandate for BIM, they have allowed their files to be uploaded to help streamline the process so that you don't have to shoulder the burden of doing it all yourself. Having standards and ensuring that they are followed is very important. So in terms of setting up these standards and setting yourself up on the path for success, it is very important to make sure that you have support. That support could be something as simple as making sure you have proper training in the software. This way you're starting out on a good foundation and not a poor foundation. It could be as simple as making workflow assessments and making sure that the plans that you have will work out and that the things you have promised your clients are achievable within the time frame and skill set that you have. One of the things that we at Microdesk have been focused on for a while now is working with our clients to put together a business plan. Where do you want your company to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then put together a map and help them achieve that, ensuring that all the steps of the way are being done correctly to not only benefit your clients, but also to protect you and your workflow. This is something we feel we excel at, and we've been working on it quite a lot. It's important to make sure that you have somebody to support you and back you and ensure you're on the right path. So these are some of the places that have actually published guidebooks or standards that you can take a look at. You have the National BIM Standard, the AIA IDP Guide. IDP is the Integrated Project Delivery. So think of this as the way, if you're going to give me a BIM model, what does that mean? Some people feel that this means that they are going to get a 3D model. Others feel that this means that they're going to get a model with lots of intelligent information. So basically, there's a difference in understanding and expectation. This E202 guide will spell everything out for you. This will explain what it's meant by level of design detail, or what I should expect from the walls, what I should expect from my mechanical system, and making sure that everybody is on the same page and what the deliverables are going to be from each of the members on the project. A little bit more information here, and I'm going to leave the slide up for just a minute. These are some of the locations where you can go and you can download, review BIM guidelines and use them as your own. Or you could use them as a starting point and then edit them and make them your own, similar to what you did when you started creating your CAD standards. This is just a list of a few additional sites here, and I'll leave this screen up for a little bit too. You can take those down. But these are other websites that are out there where you can go that will inform you a little bit more about transitioning over to BIM and help make that transition successful.